Hey everyone, today we're going to be dividing fractions. To divide fractions, we have to know a couple of vocabulary words first that we're going to be using. The first one is reciprocal. The reciprocal is two numbers whose product, so when you multiply them together, is equal to 1. The example that I have here is 2/3 times 3 over 2. If 2/3 is my original fraction, 3 over 2 is the reciprocal. I just flipped the fraction over. That's what the second vocabulary word is. It says to invert. So that means to flip over. So if I invert the first fraction, I'm going to get its reciprocal. And I can see that if I use my cross canceling, the 2 and the 2 are going to both become 1, and then the 3 and the 3 are both going to become a 1. And that's where the 1 comes from. So the first example that we're going to do is practice writing reciprocals. So you're going to be given a fraction or a number and asked to write the reciprocal. So to invert those numbers and write the reciprocal. So if my original number is 7 over 9, my reciprocal is 9 over 7. If my original number is 3 over 2, my reciprocal is 2 over 3. Now part C is a little bit tricky because it's not a fraction. So when you think of inverting a fraction, you think that there's a top and a bottom, a numerator and a denominator. But remember, when we worked with whole numbers, the first thing we did was put that whole number over 1. So now I have something that looks like a fraction. So when I invert this, when I flip it over, my reciprocal is 1 over 9. So what I would like you guys to do at this point is pause the video and then go ahead and practice the other 3. And then when you press play on this video, the answers will be there. You can check your work. So for 4 over 3, it's going to be 3 over 4. For 7 over 8, it's going to be 8 over 7. And then again, I'm going to put 4 over 1. So my reciprocal is 1 over 4. This is not the action of dividing fractions. This is just a step that we need in order to be able to divide fractions. So keep that in mind. So now it says, in words, to divide a number by a fraction, multiply the number by the reciprocal of the fraction. So this is how we're going to divide a number by a fraction. It says, don't forget that all mixed numbers must be changed to improper fractions first. So we're following the same rules that we've been following all week. We got to put whole numbers over 1. We got to change all mixed numbers to improper fractions. So in numbers, the act of dividing by a fraction, so it says 1/5 divided by 3 over 4 is equal to, and then here is our multiplying by the reciprocal. So here's our times sign, and then our reciprocal would be 4 over 3. In this situation, the example here, there is no cross canceling, so they went straight to multiplying. So 1 times 4 is 4 on top, and then 5 times 3 is 15 on the bottom. This is the process, this number process, that we're going to use our steps to go through. So our steps are going to be to write all whole numbers over 1, to rewrite all mixed numbers as improper fractions first. Okay, so we're going to make everything into a fraction first. And then we're going to do what's called keep, change, flip. So I'm going to change my highlighter color here really quick. So we're going to do what's called keep, change, flip. We're going to keep the first number the same. We're going to change the sign to multiplication. And we're going to flip the second number. So find the reciprocal. That's going to be our flip. Okay. We're still going to use our cross canceling. So we're going to simplify if we can, and then we're going to multiply our fractions. So we're going to kind of combine the last couple of days with dividing, because in order to divide fractions, you have to multiply. Kind of works out nice that way. So we're going to do a few examples here. I've got 3 examples of dividing whole numbers by fractions, dividing fractions by whole numbers, and then dividing proper fractions, so no mixed numbers. On the examples here, it doesn't look like I have any mixed numbers, so just remember that when you are doing division, you have to change the mixed numbers to improper fractions first. We will get to that in our next lesson. So when I'm dividing whole numbers by proper fractions, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a 1 on the bottom of each of my whole numbers. And then I can go right to my keep, change, flip. So I've got 3 over 1 is going to stay the same. I'm going to change my division to multiplication, and then I'm going to flip the second fraction. In this situation, there is no cross-canceling that needs to happen because 3 and 1 do not have anything else in common. 2 and 1 cannot be simplified any further, so I'm going to multiply straight across. So 3 times 2 on top, 1 times 1 on the bottom. So I get 6 over 1. In the second one, I have 12 over 1 is that's my keep. I'm going to keep that the same. I'm going to change my sign to multiplication, and I'm going to flip the second fraction. Now in this one, there is some cross-canceling that can happen. I can cancel the 3 and the 12 with each other. So the 3 is going to become a 1 because 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 12 divided by 3 is 4. That's the only cross-canceling that I can do. So I'm going to have 4 times 4 on top and 1 times 1 on the bottom. And I get 16 over 1, or 16. For 28 divided by 7 over 10, 28 over 1 is going to stay the same. I'm going to keep the first fraction, change the sign in the middle, and then I'm going to flip the second fraction. I can do some cross-canceling because 28 and 7 have a 7 in common. So 7 divided by 7 is 1, 28 divided by 7 is 4. And I'm left with 4 times 10 on top and 1 times 1 on the bottom. So I get 40 over 1. This is dividing a whole number by a fraction, so I need to write that whole number over 1 and then do my keep, change, and flip. For number 4, it's going the other way. So I'm doing a fraction divided by a whole number, but again, I'm going to put that whole number over 1. I'm going to keep the first fraction the same. I'm going to change the sign, and I'm going to flip the second one. So the second one becomes a 1 over 4. I'm going to look for cross-canceling. 6 and 4 have a 2 in common. So 6 is going to become 3, and 4 is going to become 2. So I've got 3 times 1 on top and 7 times 2 on the bottom. So 3 over 14. In number 5, 2/3 is going to stay the same. I'm going to change my sign to multiplication, and I'm going to flip my second fraction. 2 and 10 have a 2 in common. So the top becomes a 1, the bottom becomes a 5. So I have 1 times 1 on top this time, and then 3 times 5 on the bottom. So I've got 1 over 15. In the last one, I've got 2/3 is going to stay the same. I'm going to change to multiplication and then flip the second fraction, so 1 over 6. 2 and 6 have a 2 in common, so the top becomes a 1, the bottom becomes a 3. And I am left with 1 times 1 over 3 times 3, which is 1 over 9. This one is just the reverse of the first example, so still write that whole number over 1, keep, change, flip, cross cancel if possible, and off you go. Number 7, now we're doing 2 fractions. So I'm going to keep my first fraction, 2 over 7. I'm going to change to multiplication. I'm going to flip my second fraction. In this one, there is nothing that can be simplified, so the top is 2 times 3. The bottom is 7 times 1. So my answer is 6/7. In number 8, I'm going to keep 3/8 the same. I'm going to change it to multiplication and flip to 4/1. My cross canceling happens between the 8 and the 4. So 8 divided by 4 is 2, 4 divided by 4 is 1. And then I've got 3 times 1 on top, 2 times 1 on the bottom. So 3/2 is my final answer. In number 9, I'm going to keep 2/5. I'm going to change the sign to multiplication, and I am going to flip the second fraction to 10/3. In my second fraction, 5 and 10 can cross cancel. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 10 divided by 5 is 2. So I've got 2 times 2 on top and 1 times 3 on the bottom. So my answer is 4/3. And then lastly, in number 10, I've got 1/2. That's going to stay the same. I'm going to change to multiplication and flip my second fraction to 8/1. 2 and 8 can be cross-canceled. So 2 becomes a 1 and 8 becomes a 4. So I've got 1 times 4 on top and 1 times 1 on the bottom. So I get an answer of 4/1. So now you understand why we've done multiplying fractions first. It's to be able to divide fractions. To divide fractions, you keep the first one the same, you change the sign, you flip the second fraction, and then follow your steps for multiplying. Today we have done whole numbers and fractions times fractions. So a whole number divided by a fraction divided by a whole number, and then a fraction divided by a fraction. We will add mixed numbers tomorrow. There is a worksheet for homework, and please let me know if you have any questions. Good luck.